Hello and welcome to the Philippines. Sometimes the news that you hear actually has a positive and good side to it. And I'm going to discuss a few of those points today. Um, I had a guy, a foreigner, a month or two ago tell me he was so sick and tired of the Philippines. Every day he turns on the news or reads the newspaper, some other official is caught being corrupt, and it might be a mayor or vice mayor, or police chief, policemen, various people in government being caught and kicked out of office, being indicted, being thrown in jail, and he was just tired of hearing that news. And the good thing is that finally the people are getting caught, are being called on it, and things are being cleaned up a little bit. There's corruption every place in the world. I lived most of my life in the United States of America, and I've come across it there a number of times. Just a quick story here I'll tell you about that. In fact, I lived in Las Vegas for many years. Not a gambler, but I lived there. Good state to have a business in. And I was in line at, I think, the Department of Transportation to renew my driver's license one day. And the guy standing next to me was from Chicago. And he'd been in Chicago for most of his life, doing business there. And been in Las Vegas for a couple of years. And his complaint was that in Chicago, when you're bidding on jobs, a lot of times government jobs or even private industry jobs, the people tell you that they want a bribe, and they tell you how much of a bribe they want, so you can put it into the project cost, so you got everything covered. And his complaint about Las Vegas was that, you know, they want a bribe, but they won't tell you how much of a bribe they want. So it's your guess how much to put into the project. I haven't seen it that blatantly, but I have come across it a number of times as I was in marketing too. Engineers, purchasing agents suggesting that, for instance, him and his wife like to go to baseball games. Well, that meant that they expected me to buy them tickets to baseball games if I wanted any of their business. And I never bid on that, and I never got additional business from those people as well. So it's whether you're going to play that game or not. I know people I've met from different countries, and we've discussed corruption in their countries. And one guy in particular, I remember, he said, well, he did play that game. He was offered an opportunity, and he made over $1 million because of it. Anyway, I'm going to play a few clips that I've taken around the Philippines while I'm talking here. Now back to the Philippines. If you live here in the Philippines and you're watching the news, you know what I'm talking about. If you live overseas, you're getting a lot of the bad news about how bad human rights are over here, how bad our president is going after with the war on drugs, how many people are getting killed, and that type of thing. And I will tell you that people here still support this president overwhelmingly. And as I go around and talk to people and ask them, and what I continue to hear is that people will tell me, you know, we can walk in our neighborhood now. We used to not be able to walk in our neighborhood. And these are Filipinos talking. The druggies, the gangs, had taken over the neighborhoods. Basically, if you went outside, you had a big risk of being robbed or killed. Now, you didn't read about all those killings back in the USA or different places in the world. Now that we have a war on drugs going on, you read about that. You read about and certainly there are innocent people getting shot up in that. And I'm going to do another video about crime and that type of thing. But anyway, it seems that neighborhoods have been cleaned up. Places that Filipinos wouldn't walk before, they now feel safe walking there. I've been told by a couple people not to walk through a certain area close to where I used to live, and I asked a few people in the neighborhood, and they said that was before. Now we can. They've cleaned it up. There's still parts of Cebu City, Mandaue City, that have major drug problems. People out on the street. I've come across a few of them on the street when I'm walking, just acting a little crazy. But I was never confronted by them. Anyway, sometimes the bad news you're hearing here and overseas, actually things are improving. Corruption, I will say that corruption here in the Philippines is much more open than it is in many Western countries, probably. Anyway, another thing that's been in the news, you may or may not have heard, is that the pollution on some of our big tourist islands, Boracay Island, they found that a lot of the resorts over there did not put in proper sewage systems. In fact, their contractor run the line right out to the sea. The president has threatened to shut the island down for 6 months. I don't think that's going to happen. They have issued citations. They are in the process now of demolishing some of the buildings that do not have proper permits. They're digging up sewage lines that are running out to the sea, and most of the resorts, I think, are going ahead and planning to put in the proper septic tank systems, that type of thing. The bad news is that all that pollution has been going on. Same thing has been going on in parts of Panglao Island over in Bohol. And the island, the people there are in the process of going around picking up, cleaning up the area, remedying the situation. It will take some time. But the good news is that something finally is being done. You have people now in public office who are coming down on the people who issued the permits. They're coming down on the resorts that built in areas they didn't have permits to. They're probably coming down on the resorts and the contractors who built the piping out to the sea against the law, against all permits. So that's the good news, is that they're going to start watching that type of thing much more closely. Other people need to be aware, need to be careful not to fall into that trap. There may even be civil or criminal penalties involved there. Many people around the world have heard about our little problem with radical Islam, especially in southern Mindanao. And the communist rebels in some remote areas of the Philippines as well. That's been going on for decades and decades. And the good news is that most people in the Philippines, most resorts, most tourists, most expats, their life goes on normally, and you're not really affected that much by it. You know, like anywhere. You know, you've got terrorists in the U.S. and Canada and Europe as well. You always want to be aware of your surroundings as much as you can. But anyway, the government, the army is increasing in size. They're increasing their training. They're cooperating with many other countries in intelligence gathering, that type of thing, and in an effort to keep the population safe, to keep the country safe. That's not going to go away tomorrow. 10 years from now, it evolves. But I have faith that we're making progress there. I think the international community is working closer together, and there will be issues as time goes on, just like there is in many countries. But it's not going to affect most people most of the time. I did another previous video about progress in the Philippines, and I kind of touched on infrastructure projects, and we're in a build, a huge infrastructure program over the next six to 10 years. and we have a lot of foreign companies coming in, bidding on projects. Filipino told me the other day that because Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, different countries are involved in a lot of these projects and involved in getting the contractors, that type of thing, they feel there will be less corruption involved, and they feel that because those companies will have a stake in the projects. For instance, big bridges going from here, Cebu City, over to Mactan. That it is more likely to be less corruption involved, and it's more likely to get done on time. They're also pushing through the bureaucratic process of getting proper permits and that type of thing. So hopefully it won't get, a lot of those projects won't get tied up in court. There is a push to increase the quality of the school and education here, to improve hospitals. Um, for instance, up in northern Cebu, Bogo, I read recently they were getting additional equipment up there, and there's a push to get funding for additional hospitals and to improve the hospitals that we have outside of the big cities, so that they can handle the intensive care type situations. It's not going to happen overnight, but there again, there's people who are focusing on those issues. So hopefully over a number of years we'll see great improvement there as well. I read articles from a number of Philippine and Asian newspapers and news sources pretty regularly, just like every other news source in the world. Most of the news is not that good, but there's often a good side to it. And sometimes you have to look beyond the headline and the news and see that you know, they're cleaning up pollution. They're making attempts to get cleaner vehicles into our city of Cebu City, for instance. They're building bigger their bypasses and bridges. And anyway, there's an attempt. It's for those that aren't happy with that. You know, I read news from other countries as well, and every country has its own issues and problems, and so you can just go to where you're more comfortable, I guess. Anyway, thank you for coming along. Please like, please share the video, and subscribe. Safe travels to you all wherever you're at, and we'll see you next time.